I think Kilkenny is a deeper yellow, Count Corla. The Greens are of late a very weakly yellow. Count Corla, can I first of all join with Deputy Kenny in welcoming Dr. Paisley and Mrs. Paisley to the House. It is indeed a historic occasion. I want to put to you, sir, first of all, that the proposal that the government have before the House this morning in relation to next week is unconstitutional, and I will deal with that in a moment. But I want to deal first of all with the political context for this proposal. The reason that there is a proposal for a sitting next week is that originally the government had intended that there would be no sitting of the House next week. The reason that there was to be no sitting of the House next week was that it was anticipated that the by-elections, the 3 by-elections, which are outstanding, one of them outstanding now for a year, would be held next week, and that the referendum on the rights of children would be held with it, and that if Minister Gormley had got his act together by now in respect of the Dublin Mayor, we might have had that election as well. But the government don't want to have the by-elections. They're afraid of facing the people. So therefore, there won't be by-elections next week. Because the government don't want to have the by-elections next week, they can't put on the referendum for children next week, which I think is actually quite a cynical position on the part of the government, that it's prepared to sacrifice the welfare of children in order to protect its own political hide. And because of all of that, it has to have a sitting next week. And the government chief whip announced this with some fanfare last weekend. Now, the sitting that is proposed for next week, Can Corla, is a sitting of a day and a half. I don't have any objection to the business that's proposed for that day and a half, but it is just a day and a half. If that were not bad enough, we have a proposal before us this morning that next week be no oral questions, no order of business, no adjournment debates, no standing orders 32 requests, no private members' business, and no votes. Now that type of order of business for an entire week's business is arrogant. It shows a government that's out of touch. It is a government that is abusing its majority here in the House, and it is a muzzling of Parliament. And I want to submit to you, sir, that the proposal is not constitutional. And I draw your attention to Article 15:11(1) of the Constitution, which says that all questions in each House shall, save as otherwise provided in this Constitution, be determined by a majority of the votes of the members present and voting, other than the chairman or the presiding member. The motion that's before us states that, notwithstanding anything in standing orders, unless the Dáil shall otherwise order. Now, here's the problem. If this motion is passed, the Dáil will have no means by which it may otherwise order business in the House next week, because this motion provides that there shall be no votes in the House. And I put it to you, sir, that the motion that the Taoiseach has proposed in this House is not constitutional and may not be taken and should not be taken in this House. I believe it is unprecedented. I believe it is unprecedented for any government to abuse its parliamentary majority by bringing a proposal before the Parliament which effectively muzzles the Parliament. And that proposal and the way in which it has been presented, here prevents the House from making a change in that next week. Suppose that there were some issue next week. Suppose, for example, there were some issue in relation to the flotilla that is approaching Gaza. Suppose there were some national emergency of some kind or other. Suppose there were some major. Frankly,
but on the other business, and we're speaking away off the point. Really,
frankly, I can't, Corla. There is a contemptuous attitude being betrayed by the government in relation to this. What they're doing here, let's call it for what it is. Let's call it for what it is. This is a pretense that the Dáil will be doing normal business next week. And do you know why it's being done? Because the government, the ministers, are going on holidays next week. You're making a mockery. You're making a mockery of the Dáil. You're making a mockery of the Dáil. You're running away from your responsibilities, and it is an absolute disgraceful proposal. On the point of order, Ceann Comhairle, you did respond saying that you felt that the House could vary the order of business for next week. May I respectfully suggest to you that I don't see how it can do that if there is no order of business at which the business of the House is discussed. And secondly, if there is no provision for the taking of a division or of a vote next week, which means that the House will be deprived of making a decision. So I am submitting to you, Ceann Comhairle, that the proposal is not constitutional, and I would suggest that at a minimum that you should adjourn to take some advice on it. And to perhaps consult the parties, either party leaders or party whips in relation to the proposal. I do draw your attention to the fact that Deputy Stagg had proposed 7 different amendments to this motion from the government this morning, but it won't be possible to deal with those 7 amendments individually because the government are proposing that the motion be taken as one question and be put without debate, which will deprive us of the opportunity of dealing with it. So I'm recommending to you, Ceann Comhairle, that you should adjourn and take some advice on this. I am submitting to you, on behalf of the Labour Party, that the proposal before the House from the government is not constitutional. No. I'm sorry, Ceann Comhairle. You know, we are a parliament, and we're elected here, and we have rights, and we're not going to be steamrolled. Now, you have said, Ceann Comhairle, you have said that the House can vary the order next week, and that the House is the master of its own destiny. This motion removes the House's mastery of its own destiny and its discretion. There is no means under this motion which the government is proposing whereby the House can change the order. What the motion is doing is setting down the business for next week without any provision or any opportunity for that business to be varied. No order of business, no votes, no private members' time. It is removing from the House the discretion that the House would normally have in a normal week's business, and it's removing that from next week. And I say to you, sir, again, I say to you that it is not constitutional, and I ask you to protect the rights of the members of this House by, at a minimum, adjourning the House and taking some advice on what I have put to you.